My name is Chester. I'm 62 years old. I've been a widower for almost a decade, and this Christmas was the loneliest of my life. Have you ever been abandoned by someone who created it with your own hands? Have you ever felt the weight of being excluded by the ones you loved the most? Because that's exactly what happened to me. My daughter broke up with me, yes, in the coolest and most calculated way imaginable. And what hurts is not the money. It is silence. It's the ticket. It's the way she walked out the door without looking back. After everything I've done, everything I've given. If you've ever found yourself wondering why the ones we help the most are the ones who turn their backs on us the most, you're not alone. Because I also asked myself this question several times, but in this video, I'm going to tell you everything. From the moment I planned the perfect Christmas trip for my family, to the day I found out they had gone without me. You will understand how a simple ticket became a watershed, because when my daughter left me, she thought I was going to accept it in silence, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. But before we dive into the heart of this story, I need you to know something. On Christmas morning, I woke up expecting the smell of coffee, laughter from my granddaughter running down the stairs, the table set with the pancakes I always make. But I found only silence. The house was empty, impeccably tidy, as if it had never been inhabited. On the table, in the place where I always left my mug, there was a note. It was my daughter's. She and her husband had gone to Aspen with his parents, alone. A trip that I paid for. I paid for everything, even the champagne on New Year's Eve, and even so I was left behind. But what they didn't know, it's just that I still had the keys to everything, literally. I was responsible for reservations, authorizations, payments. And when the truth cut me off, I did what no one expected. Now, before I tell you this with all the details, let me ask you one thing, from father to son, with an open heart. If this story has ever touched any corner of your memory, if you know someone who also gave everything and was left aside, leave your like here, subscribe to the channel. Sometimes, we just need to feel that there is someone listening on the other side, because telling this is not easy. But I don't want to carry that silence alone anymore. I started planning that Christmas in the middle of September. It may seem early, but anyone who has lost someone important knows. Certain dates need to be prepared with the heart. Since my wife passed away, Christmas has become my way of keeping her alive in the house. She was the one who loved that time. I set up the tree listening to those old Judy Garland songs, baked cookies with Amanda when I was little, and made me wear that ridiculous reindeer sweater just to laugh at my face. After she left, it was up to me to try to keep that spirit alive, and that year I wanted something different, something beautiful. I thought, why not Aspen? Real snow, mountains, a real fireplace, a decent supper. I called the Little Nell Hotel, one of the best in the area. I made sure to book 2 rooms, one for me, one for Amanda, Nathan and my granddaughter. I bought the ski passes in advance. I booked the spa, snowboard lessons for the little one. Even a sleigh ride with huskies I included, all to see those smiles. I remember very well when I told Amanda. She was having coffee in my kitchen. She said she was tired, that the end of the year had been heavy. Then I opened the envelope and handed over the reserve papers. Her eyes watered. He hugged me tightly, said, "Father, you're awesome." And I, silly that I am, believed it. In the following weeks, she called me almost every day. She talked about the cold clothes, her daughter's excitement, the plans she had for our supper. Nathan even sent a message saying that his mother-in-law wanted to prepare something special and take it on the go. I replied that it would be great, that the more family together, the better. It was the first Christmas with everyone together since the pandemic. And for me, it was more than that. I was about to propose a new tradition. Something to keep the family together, you know. I thought I'd do that on Christmas Eve. I had even bought a small silver reliquary with a picture of my late wife. I wanted to give it to Amanda as a symbol that she was now the heart of this family. But something started to bother me. Little things. Glances exchanged between her and Nathan when I spoke, A dinner in which I felt shifted. Once I commented that I had already separated the snow equipment, and Amanda let out a, "Oh, are you also going skiing?" in a tone that was a little too surprised, as if I wasn't part of the plan. But I let it go. We always think it's just a thing in our heads, right? And maybe it was, until 2 weeks before Christmas, I noticed that Nathan was weird with me. More silent, more distant. I asked him for help to set up one of the travel apps on his cell phone, and he said he was busy. When Amanda appeared, he changed the subject right away. But I didn't mean to think badly. I just promised myself that Christmas, nothing would spoil. I was going to make it all right. And this is where I need to stop for a moment. Because there's something that still hurts me today. We give everything, really everything, thinking that you will only get the basics back. Respect. And when it doesn't even come, when even the hug is fake, people's souls crack. If you've ever felt that, if you've ever realized that you were excited by something that only existed within you, comment below with a, "I've lived it," or a, "It touched me." Because sometimes, just knowing that someone has also gone through this, we feel less silly, less alone. But going back, on the eve of the trip, I got everything ready. The suitcases were organized, the documents separated. I made cinnamon pancakes, as I did when Amanda was little, for us to eat before hitting the road. I went to sleep with a calm heart, feeling that finally Christmas would have that family smell again. But what awaited me the next morning, I could never have imagined. Have you ever woken up thinking you were going to live a dream and found that you were inside a silent abandonment? Because that's what happened. And it is about this moment that I will tell you now, because it was there, in front of that set and empty table, that my story changed forever. That Christmas morning, I opened my eyes as the dim winter light poured in through the cracks in the window. I looked at the clock, 6:42 a.m. I was always the first to wake up, even when I didn't need to. I got up carefully, put on my plaid robe, slowly went down the steps of the stairs and went straight to the kitchen. I turned on the coffee maker, set the table with the red set dishes that my wife loved to use at that time. While the pancakes were baking in the oven, I put on an old record to play. Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. The same music that rocked our Christmases for more than 30 years. Everything was in place, the illuminated tree in the corner of the room, the gifts stacked with golden ribbons, the fireplace lit, and I, there smiling alone, imagining the noise of my granddaughter's feet running down, Amanda saying, "Dad, everything smells good," Nathan asking for coffee. I waited for this moment like a child waits for Santa's sleigh. But time passed, and nothing happened. No sound upstairs, no laughter, no step. The music is over. The coffee maker turned off by itself. The pancakes cooled. I climbed the stairs slowly, with strange butterflies in my stomach. I knocked on the door of the guest room. Nothing. Open. The bed was made impeccable. The suitcase that Amanda had left the day before disappeared. I went to her granddaughter's room. The same. No clothes, no stuffed animals. Everything was too clean. And then my heart raced. I stumbled down the steps almost, and that's when I saw, on the kitchen table where there was once a lit candle, there was only one ticket. The paper was folded carefully. I recognized the lyrics right away. It was Amanda's. My first impulse was to think it was some emergency, that they had left in a hurry and would return. But the words, "Dad, we decided to go to Aspen, just the four of us. We think you'd understand. We need family time. It was a difficult decision. We love you." I reread it 3-4 times. I was waiting for some explanation that didn't come. Nothing about meeting me afterwards. Nothing about seeing me the next day. Is that it? We thought you'd understand. I think it was there that I understood what it is to have the floor pulled without making noise. I sat in the armchair in the living room, with the note still in my hands, unable to breathe properly. I looked at the tree, still blinking, as if mocking me. The gift I bought for Amanda, a simple piece of jewelry with her daughter's name engraved on it, was right there. with my handwritten card. For you to keep your family close to your heart. Funny. What I wanted most that day was just that. Be close. Hearing my granddaughter call me Grandpa and Amanda say, "Thank you for everything, Dad." Is that it? Instead, I was given a cold paper and the certainty that I was cut from a plan that I paid for myself. I stayed there for hours. I didn't cry right away. First came the void, then the shame, and finally, that old pain, which only those who have been ignored by someone they love understand. And the cruelest, it's just that I wasn't forgotten, I was excluded. Have you ever felt that? The difference between being forgotten and being excluded is that, in the latter case, you were not only not remembered, you were deliberately left out. And this has a different weight. The house went dark, even with the lights on. The food has lost its taste, and I, for the first time in a long time, I felt old, real old. But you know, sometimes when silence hurts more than a scream, we understand that something needs to change. Because at that moment, sitting in the armchair, holding that note and staring into the void, something in me woke up, something I didn't even know still existed. And if you think it ended there, you are mistaken. Because they could have gone to Aspen without me. But they forgot one thing. Everything on that trip, absolutely everything, was still in my name. Do you want to know what I did after reading that note? Just wait and see. After that note, I got up slowly. The body felt heavier than ever. I went up the stairs again, opened each room as if looking for a trace of a dream that has ended. Nothing. Everything was clean, tidy, even the folded towels in the bathroom. No sign of haste, no sign of affection, only absence. I went down again. I looked at the packages under the tree, all with names written in my crooked handwriting. Amanda, Nathan, Lily. Even their in-laws had a gift. I had wrapped it all up myself a week before. I remember putting special bows on my granddaughter's packages. It was the doll she'd been asking for months, along with a book of illustrated short stories. I dreamed of reading to her in front of the fireplace, but the fireplace now only warmed the void. I went to the kitchen, sat on the countertop, and took a deep breath. I took the landline and dialed Amanda's number. Once, 2, 3, mailbox. I texted, "Did something happen?" Nothing. I tried Nathan's number. Silence. I tried again. Nothing else. What hurt me was not only the silence, it was realizing that he was already expected. They hadn't gone at the last minute. They had planned it. I went to my office, opened the laptop. I entered the bill for the hotel in Aspen, where I made the reservations. I called there. I spoke with an attendant named Rachel. I asked if the room in my name had been occupied. She, knowing nothing, replied gently, "Yes, Mr. Chester. The family arrived last night. They checked in around 8 p.m. Yesterday. They arrived yesterday. The pain I felt didn't come as a punch. It came like ice water running down my chest." Amanda spent the day before with me. He had coffee in front of me. He hugged me before leaving. I said, "I love you, Dad." Knowing that he was already ready to leave me, they smiled at me, and with everything set up, they ate my food with the bags hidden. And me? I was just the naive old man who paid for everything without asking. At that moment, the penny dropped with a weight that crushed me inside. I hadn't just been left aside, I had been used. It wasn't as if they had forgotten. No. They organized, plotted, hid. And yet, they left me there with that table set, that tree flashing, and that family fantasy that only existed in my head. I stared at the note again, as if the words could change. We need family time. And what was I? An intruder. A nuisance. I remembered when Amanda was little. I would come home from work and she would run to my lap. "Daddy's here!" I remembered the night she cried because she was afraid of the dark, and I slept on the floor of her room, holding her little hand under the bed. I remembered when she lost her mother, and it was in my embrace that she cried. And now, all of this, discarded with a paper. I looked at the table. The plate I had put for her was still there, cold. untouched. At that moment I didn't cry. Not yet. But I felt a pain that no man should feel. A pain that doesn't make noise, that doesn't run, but it stays there, hammering in the back of the throat. You can call it betrayal, of ingratitude, of cowardice. I called it the end, because that Christmas I died a little inside, but there was still something they had forgotten. They were in Aspen, in the luxury resort, hosted with my name on the reservation, with my data in the system. The ski passes, the spa, the gala dinner, everything on my card. And you know, it was there, in that icy solitude of Christmas, that something inside me began to change. Because if they could smile while plotting my exclusion, so maybe it was time for me to stop being the good old man in the story. Want to know what I did with all those reservations? So wait, because now it's my turn. After that phone call to the hotel and the cruel certainty that crossed my chest, I sat there in the armchair in the living room, looking at the blinker of the tree as if looking at an extinguished fire. It didn't smell like Christmas anymore. There was no more noise of laughter. It was just me and a lot of memories that began to sprout, one after the other, as if my head had been spinning one of those old projectors. The first image that came to me was of Amanda, still small, 5 years old, in a pink leotard, dancing in the school's ballet recital. She missed all the steps, but for me, she was the star of the show, the most beautiful, the lightest. I was in the front row, filming with those big cameras, sweating inside the blazer that her mother insisted I wear. At the end, she ran to my lap and said, "Did you see that I almost flew, Dad?" I replied, "You flew, my love. It flew." Then I remembered the night she was sick, flu, earache, fever. I spent the night sitting on the floor of the room, holding her hand while she slept. Sometimes I only woke up when the sun was already beating down on the window, and she, in a weak voice, said, "Were you here all the time?" And I smiled. I always will be. Later came his high school graduation. She wanted a blue dress, just like a movie character she had seen. She had no money at the time, not the way she dreamed. So me and my mother-in-law spent a week sewing that dress. I learned to make invisible stitches just because of that. In the end, she came out radiant, and she said to me, "This is the most beautiful dress at the party." Years later, she wanted to study psychology. He said he wanted to understand people's emotions, that he wanted to help. I turned around. I worked twice as hard. I pouted. I took out a loan, and I paid every penny. I never let her realize the weight of it. When he graduated, he called me on stage, hugged me and said, "This diploma is also yours." I cried like a child. And marriage. Marriage. It was worthy of a magazine. Amanda wanted it all. Flower garden, live band, French buffet, hanging lighting. I paid for everything. From the dress to the honeymoon trip to Hawaii, Nathan didn't even have to touch his pocket. I said I did it for love. And it was true. But now, thinking about it, maybe I gave so much, so hard, that she forgot to look at me as a father. He started to see me as a guarantee, a safe, a sponsorship, a weight. I began to ask myself, where did I go wrong? Did I spoil too much? Did I hide the difficulties so much that she thought everything was easy? But then, the hurt became something different. It turned into indignation, because ingratitude is one thing, it is contempt. And I started to see things with different eyes. That smile that Amanda gave me days before the trip, that feigned tear when I spoke of our tradition, the sweet words, all of them now sounded like strategy, as if she had already decided that I was no longer part of the family, but needed my signature, my card, my silence. I have always been ground. And now, did I become a weight? No, I didn't accept that. And look, I'm here, opening my heart, telling this story with every piece of me. If you're still with me, listening this far, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, because I still have a lot to tell you. And maybe in the midst of these memories, you will also find a little of your own. Because that day, something changed in me. I stopped being just the betrayed old man. I began to stand up like the man who remembers everything he did, of every gesture, every waver, every proof of love. That's it. No one takes it from me. Now tell me, what does a man do when he realizes that he has been used by the one he loved the most? In the next part, I'll tell you exactly what was the first step I took, and I assure you, it was not small. I spent the rest of that day in silence, not the silence of peace, but the silence of the wound, one of those that doesn't need sound to hurt. I sat in the armchair in the living room and looked at everything I built in that house. The photos on the shelves, still with the photo frames that my wife chose so carefully. Here were the frozen smiles of a family that I thought was strong, true, indestructible. On the wall of the stairs, the sequence of portraits. Amanda at the age of 5, at 12, at the school dance, at graduation. In each one, my arm around her as if protecting what she loves most in the world. And there I was, now old, alone, surrounded by evidence of a love that was one-handed. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't even try. The phone was still silent, and that note was still there, on the table. We thought you'd understand. What would you understand, my God? That I was disposable, that a father's place can be replaced by a chef de cuisine in a chic resort. I faced those words as someone who faces the shovel of lime on top of a coffin. But instead of dying inside, I stood up. I went to the office. A small room at the end of the hallway, where I keep my papers, my tools, my memories. I opened the third drawer, the one where I keep everything that is too important to be left behind. And there it was, the navy blue briefcase from the trip, all organized, sheet by sheet. There was the Little Nell Reserve there, the itinerary of the transfer to the resort, Lily's snowboarding lessons, the spa and relaxation session that Amanda asked me to book, the New Year's Eve dinner with the private chef. That was Nathan who ordered it. I had even paid for the private tour of the mountains, everything, in my name. I took a deep breath, the heart beating slowly but firmly. I sat at the table, turned on the computer. I opened the emails. The first thing I did was access the account of the tour company. There were all the confirmations, everything in my power. I called the hotel first. The same attendant as before answered. Rachel. I spoke calmly. I asked if I could review the reservations on my behalf. She confirmed. I said yes, that everything was active. Great, Rachel. I would like to cancel all additional services. She hesitated. Everyone. Do you want to keep only the accommodation? For now, yes. Turned off, and then I went one by one. I cancelled Lily's snowboarding lesson, Amanda's spa, sledding reservation, the tour through the mountains, the private supper with the French chef, click by click. Each button, each confirmation, was like giving back a piece of what they took from me. It was not revenge, it was justice. I thought about how they would be at that moment, in a fluffy bathrobe, drinking wine, laughing at my expense, without even imagining that the old man was here, awake, attentive, and acting. I did everything with a calmness that even scared me. He didn't tremble. I didn't cry anymore. It was as if a part of me had taken charge, the part that had spent its whole life saying, "It's going to be okay," even when it wasn't. And do you know what was cruel in all this? I didn't want to destroy anything. I just wanted them to feel it. Feel what it is like to be taken out of one's plans. Taste what they gave me, contempt wrapped in silence. After everything was done, I closed the laptop, turned off the office light and went to the balcony. The snow was falling thin, the sky white. The whole world seemed too quiet, but inside me, a new sound began to echo. It wasn't anger, it was lucidity. And a question came to me. If they did it now, with everything I gave, how far else would they be able to go? The answer would come sooner than I imagined, because the next day, Amanda tried to call me. The day after Christmas, I woke up to the sound of the landline ringing. I looked into the viewfinder. Amanda. It took me a while to answer. I took a deep breath, let it play 2 more times. When I finally raised the phone, I didn't say hello. I was just silent. On the other side, her voice came out half nervous, half rehearsed. "Dad, we just learned that some services were cancelled here at the hotel. Did you do that?" I remained silent for a few seconds. Then I replied with the calm of someone who no longer owes explanations. "I did." She hesitated. "But why? Was it a mistake? We just wanted a moment of our own, you know? You misunderstood." "I didn't get it wrong, Amanda. I only understood late." I hung up before she finished the next sentence, because at that point no words would stick. But something about that call ignited an instinct in me, something deeper, older. I went to the back room where I keep my old safe. You know that kind of combination, safe, heavy? That doesn't seem to belong to our time anymore. I opened it calmly. Inside, among laminated folders and brown envelopes, were the records of a lifetime of effort and of sacrifice. I started to separate what interested me. Loan agreement for the apartment in Denver, signed by Amanda and Nathan with me as guarantor. Proof of the $38,000 transfer I used to pay off her new car, a black SUV she wanted for Lily's safety. Bills from the $22,000 down payment I made at her in-laws' house as a wedding gift. At the time, Amanda insisted, "Their family, Dad." The proof of tuition paid at her granddaughter's private school in the last 2 years. Everything saved, all in my name, all with my signature. And at that moment, holding that paperwork, I understood. I wasn't just the forgotten man. I was the foundation, the invisible foundation of everything they called stability. It wasn't just the trip. That was life. They were building an entire castle out of my bricks, and now they wanted me to live outside. And that's when I decided to call Jacob Kramer. Jacob is a methodical, direct, straightforward lawyer. He took care of the sale of my company when I retired 5 years ago. He always said that I was too generous. He answered the second ring. "Chester, what a surprise." "Jacob, I need you to review some documents. Urgent. Problems. Treason." I personally took the briefcase to his office in downtown Boulder. I sat in front of him and spread the papers on the table. He looked at each leaf carefully. Every transfer, every subscription. After half an hour, he looked up and said, "Chester, you have more control than you realize." I was silent, waiting for him to continue. These contracts were not symbolic. They're cool. The apartment, the car, even the in-laws' house. Everything can be questioned. Everything can be reviewed. And more importantly, you never officially gave up anything. Technically, it is still the financier. It gives you power. He doesn't smile. I didn't even celebrate. But inside, a firmness grew. Because there, sitting in that leather chair, surrounded by documents that looked like just paper, I realized that the tables had turned. And you know, I'm telling you all this because I know that, as hard as it is to hear, there are people who need this story. There are people who have gone through something similar and thought they couldn't do anything, that I had to swallow hard, accept it, move on. But sometimes, our silence is just a pause before the movement. So if you've made it this far, stay with me until the end, because what's next, it's the part of the story that moves me the most to this day, because that's when I found out that they were trying to erase my name from a joint bank account. Hey, my friend. Then things changed their tone. That night, even with everything that had already happened, and with the documents organized next to the armchair, I couldn't sleep. Nor do you nap. The house was dark, silent, and yet I felt a constant noise inside my head, as if each memory hit my conscience lightly. I got up, put on my bathrobe, went down the stairs with slow steps. The wood on the floor creaked, as if it also felt the weight of what I was carrying. I went to the kitchen, turned on the kettle, but forgot the tea on the table. I was just walking from one room to another, aimlessly, like a ghost inside my own life. In the hallway, I stopped in front of the entrance mirror. That oval mirror my wife picked out for our second Christmas here. I looked at myself there and saw a tired man. But more than that, I saw a man asking himself, where did I go wrong? I sat on the living room floor, the same room where we watched Amanda's first steps, where we cradled Lily when she was born, where we celebrated so many New Year's Eves. I leaned on the cushions and cried softly, but it was not a cry of anger nor of sorrow. It was a cry of absence, of emptiness. Because deep down, all I wanted was to be remembered, not because of what I gave, but for what I was. I know there are people who think that when a father gives too much, he suffocates. What too much love, too much presence, too much care, it becomes weight. And I asked myself that right there, that morning. Could it be that loving my way was what drove my daughter away? Did I confuse generosity with control? I even tried to write. I took pen and paper, started a letter. Amanda, if you knew how it hurt. But I stopped, tore, because I realized that at that moment she was not the one who needed to listen. It was me. I went to the bedroom, opened the old closet, and pulled out a light wooden box. It was the box of letters. My wife Susan had this custom. Every Christmas she left me a note. Sometimes long, sometimes just a sentence, but always full of life. And even after she was gone, I never had the courage to get rid of them. I opened the lid of the box with trembling hands. Her smell was still there, mixed with the aged paper. I took one of the letters. It was from 1998. She said, "Even when the world seems harsh, you remain the shelter. You are the heart of this family." I read that about 10 times. Then I got another one. "It's not what you give. It's what you are that keeps us standing." I cried. But this time, it was different. It was as if she was still there, as if, even after so long, she still saw me. And it was there, on that icy ground with her words in my hand, that I decided, the heart of this family. Now it's going to hit for me. You know, there are moments in life when we need to stop everything and look in the mirror of the soul. Ask, do I still know who I am, even if no one else remembers? If you've ever felt this doubt, this silence screaming inside, write here in the comments just a "I understand" or a "I know how it is." Because maybe, just maybe, you're also trying to recognize yourself among the shards. I closed the box. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in days, I felt a thread of strength. But it was just the beginning. The next morning, I logged into the bank's app. And it was there that I saw the notification, an attempt to change ownership. Someone was trying to delete me from the joint account. But this time, I was ready. The next morning, I got up early. Sleeping was still a challenge, but that night, after Susan's letters and the sneaky attempt to delete me from the account, gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. I put on my winter jacket, the heaviest one, put on my boots, and walked down the street to downtown Boulder. Snow was still piling up on the sidewalks, but the sky had a different tone, a firm blue. I walked slowly to Pearl Street, as Susan and I always did in the quieter winters. I walked into a coffee shop we used to go to, ordered a black coffee and sat at the corner table, alone. This time it wasn't the broken man of 2 days ago. It was another, still painful, of course, but sober, with a plan. I grabbed a napkin and began to list, item by item, everything that was still under my name, even after years of concessions. I had more control than anyone there realized. And now, I was going to use that. After coffee, I walked into an executive goods store and bought a new leather briefcase. Beautiful, firm, with the smell of something serious, as if it were a new chapter. From there, I went straight to the registry office. I updated records, asked for certified copies of old documents. I changed authorizations, revoked access. I called 2 banks. I asked for immediate blocking of additional cards that were with Amanda and Nathan. The attendant hesitated. He asked, "Are you sure?" I replied, "Yes, I do, and I should have done it years ago." I returned home and opened the will. Yes, because those who have a long life need to organize the exit with dignity. The will was all there, still with her and Nathan's names as the main beneficiaries. I changed everything. No anger, no scandal, only justice. I included early donations to charities Susan supported. I named the Denver Fire Brigade Foundation as the legatee of a portion of the investments. They were the ones who saved our home from the fire in 2009. And I left a letter, not for Amanda, but for Lily. In it, I didn't talk about money. I spoke from memory. He said who I was, how much I loved seeing her eyes shining when she called me Grandpa. I asked her to grow up knowing that even if one day they twisted history, she can always ask the truth, and the truth will find its way back. You might think I was being harsh, but I'll tell you one thing. There's a difference between revenge and justice. Revenge wants to scream, wants to punish, wants to destroy. Justice just wants to return everything to the right place. And at that moment, sitting at the living room table with all the updated documents, my new folder next to me, I felt in control of my own story, for the first time in a long time. It's not easy to look at your own family and accept that they don't see you anymore. But even more difficult, it is letting oneself disappear in silence. That day, I understood that I didn't need to warn anyone. He didn't need to send a message. There was no need for confrontation. It was enough to act. Amanda was still in Aspen, still thinking I was on top, with everything resolved, with champagne toasts and fake laughter in the photos posted. But she didn't know that, back in the house she left behind, I was rearranging everything, day after day, document by document, access by access. And that Christmas present, the dream trip. Now it was the tip of the ball, because there I discovered something much deeper. There was another account, one that they tried to hide. And it was there that the money from the sale of my company had been transferred. But they forgot one detail. The notification email was still mine. Want to know what I found inside? Just wait and see. 2 days later, I went to Denver to meet Jacob. I hit the road just after breakfast, with the leather briefcase on the passenger seat and an almost uncomfortable calm in my chest. Driving helps me think. And that day, thinking was what I needed most, because it wasn't just about money. It was about history, about rewriting, with my own hands, what they tried to get out of me in silence. Jacob's office is in an old building with reddish bricks, with a discreet sign on the door. I went in and went straight to the reception. The secretary recognized me right away. "Mr. Chester, Dr. Kramer is already waiting." He greeted me with a firm handshake, as always, but this time with a closer look. We spread the papers on his desk, one of those wide, solid wood tables, full of marks of time. Every document, every contract, every statement, everything there. Jacob analyzed calmly, methodically, pulling his glasses to the tip of his nose, as if he were disassembling a puzzle he already knows by heart. After nearly half an hour of reading, he looked up and said, "Chester, legally you can foreclose on this loan. You can ask for the return of the amount used to buy the apartment. And if you want, you can even get the value of the car back. They have no defense, just an emotional outburst." I was silent. I let the information settle. He continued, "The house of the in-laws, technically it was a gift, but without a contract. This can complicate things, but the account you discovered, this account, then it's different. He has movements in his name, direct transfers, emails with your address. They didn't completely get you out of there. They just tried to hide it." I looked at him calmly. "I want to act, Jacob, but with elegance. No scandal, no screaming, just protocol, as it should be." He nodded. "So let's start with the formal notification of collection. They will receive the official communication in their name, with a deadline for response. After that, we opened the process. But I warn you, it won't be fast. I've waited all my life, Jacob. A few more months won't kill me. Then we move on to the will. That old document that still had Amanda and Nathan as direct beneficiaries. He asked me if I wanted to exclude both of them. I answered firmly, I want to. But I want more than that. I want to leave it to those who have never turned their backs on me. So we started structuring donations, one part at the University of Colorado, where I studied when I was young, and where Susan taught at the beginning of our marriage. Another part for the hospital that took care of her in the last months of her life. I remember to this day the affection of the nurses, the notes on the flowers, the low conversations in the hallway. And a third part for a foundation to support abandoned elderly. When I talked about it, Jacob looked at me for a longer time. I smiled and said, "They're not going to erase my history, and I'm not going to erase myself either." The afternoon flew by in that office, but I left there with my heart aligned with my head. For the first time, everything seemed to make sense. If this piece of my life can become a mirror or a hug for someone, help me carry it forward. Like and subscribe here to the channel. It makes more difference than you think. Sometimes all we need is to know that someone, somewhere, really listened. I returned home under a cloudy sky, but without weight in my chest. The house was quiet as always, but this time the silence didn't hurt. It was just silence. I sat on the porch with a bitter coffee in my hand and stared at the snowy horizon, thinking that, little by little, everything was going back to its place. But that same night, I received an email from Nathan, and what he said, it changed everything. After I came back from Jacob's office and read that email from Nathan, I went straight to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and left the laptop there, open. The message was short, cold. "Chester, I think there was a misunderstanding. Amanda was shaken by the cut of the cards. We are trying to understand what is happening. I think we could talk like adults." There was no apology, not a mention of Christmas, not even a question about how I was. Nothing, just worrying about what they were missing, with the money, with the accesses. I didn't answer. I closed the laptop and went to organize the paperwork in my office. I still had documents to scan, receipts to separate. I opened the desk drawer and saw in the corner the old iPad that Amanda used when she lived here. It was an old device, but it still worked. I picked it up, turned it on, and when I connected to Wi-Fi, it updated automatically. I didn't expect anything too much. I just left it loading in the corner, but then a few minutes later, it beeped with a notification. A new message. Group, Christmas trip. Open. It was a group with 4 participants: Amanda, Nathan, his parents, Carol, and Mark. My heart froze, but I clicked anyway, and there was the deepest wound. One of the messages was from Amanda, sent on Christmas Eve, December 23rd. "Let's leave early before he wakes up. He won't even notice. We leave the note, and that's it." Soon after, Nathan replied, "He will overcome, as always. We just don't want the needy old man atmosphere on the trip. It's going to be perfect." His mother-in-law wrote, "Better this way. It will avoid dramas." And Amanda closed, "It's going to be our best Christmas." I read it once, twice, 5 times. Each word was like a knife going through a piece of my memory. It was not just exclusion. It was the coldness with which they planned, the way they laughed, how they diminished me, how they turned me into a nuisance. No, we hope that people will disappoint us, but he never expects them to celebrate that. I calmly closed the iPad. I didn't cry. I just breathed. I stared at the ceiling for a few minutes and then whispered to myself, "Now I have everything I need." Because there, in that forgotten device, I found what was missing. The emotional test, the moral test, that which is not measured with a contract, but with dignity. I saved the messages. Print. I joined it with the other documents, and I sat in silence, this time not as if I had lost, but as someone who finally saw everything clearly. Do you know what's most curious about all of this? Sometimes the truth only comes out when we stop chasing after it. And if you've come this far with me, it's because something in this story moved you too. So stay with me, because what I'm going to tell you after that, it was the moment when Amanda returned home. but she didn't expect to find me different, and much less preparation. 3 days after that message on the iPad, the landline rang. It was late afternoon, the sky starting to turn pink outside, and I was sitting on the porch, finishing my second coffee of the day. I answered on the second ring, and when I heard her voice, for an instant, for a single instant, my heart wanted to believe that it was another connection. Who was the Amanda from before? The one who called me after school, the one who called me daddy even as an adult, the one who hugged me tight at the airport door. But this Amanda, his voice was tense, rehearsed. Dad, is everything okay? The hotel said our reservations were gone. They said the card was declined. What's going on? My answer was simple. He only said, they didn't disappear, Amanda. They were removed. For me, silence. One of those heavy silences which speak more than any words. She took a deep breath. He tried to keep his composure. Dad, it was a misunderstanding. We just wanted a different time, a new atmosphere. You got it all wrong. A $17,000 misunderstanding? Her voice cracked, as if he didn't know what to say. But I continued, still calm. If you want to really talk, come in person. The door is open for conversation, but not for theater. She hung up, without saying goodbye, and there, in that second, I knew she didn't hang up crying with regret. He turned it off because he lost control, because the needy old man, as they said, was not so naive after all. I sat there, watching the mountains in the distance, the cold wind coming in through the sleeve of the coat, the sound of the tree swaying in the yard, and an old memory came to mind. Amanda was about 8 years old. He was afraid of thunder. Once, during a heavy storm, she ran into my room and crawled under the covers, shivering. I hugged her and said, as long as I'm here, nothing will happen to you. And I complied. All these years, I always have been. But time passes. And sometimes those we protect one day become the ones who push us out. No, there are memories that are trapped inside us as if they were part of the skin. They don't age. They do not fade. And I wanted to ask you something now, with an open heart. Is there any memory in there that you have never been able to forget? Something good, or something that marked you forever? If you do, write here in the comments. It can be just a sentence, a name, a place. Sometimes remembering is the only way we have to not get completely lost. I went back inside the house, washed the mug, put the papers away. The night settled through the windows. I knew she would come. Amanda has always been driven by control. And now that he was escaping through her hands, she was going to show up. But I had no idea that she would not come alone, and that what she was going to tell me, it was going to reopen wounds that I thought had already healed. On Saturday morning, the front gate creaked. I heard the sound of tires on the gravel at the entrance and went to the window. It was the black car that I myself had helped finance last summer. Inside, I saw Amanda in the passenger seat, Nathan driving. Behind, the in-laws, Carol and Mark, sat as if coming for a Sunday lunch. They didn't care. They didn't send a message. They came as someone who enters where they think they still have the right. I waited for the bell to ring. It took me a good few seconds to open. When I opened it, Amanda forced a smile. "Dad, we came to explain." I stared at the four of them for a moment. Then I made room and just said, "You can come in." They sat in the living room, the same sofa where we took so many Christmas photos. Amanda folded her hands in her lap. Nathan, with his legs swinging, clearly uncomfortable. The in-laws feigned composure, as if they were just passing through. But I didn't offer coffee, not even water. I didn't even ask if they were okay. I went to my office and brought the briefcase. I placed it on the coffee table. I opened it calmly. I first took out the apartment loan contract. I put it in front of them. Then the car receipt. Next, the records of bank transfers. And finally, the impressions of the conversation in the Christmas trip group. I pointed with my finger. "You signed that." Then I pointed out the sheets with the messages. "And you wrote that." Amanda turned white. Nathan still tried to smile sideways. Chester said, "This all seems bigger than it is. You're being radical." I stared at him, and I spoke softly, but firmly. It was radical to be left alone at Christmas. Radical is to laugh at me behind my back. Radical. It's abandoning a man who just wanted to spend the day with his granddaughter. This here, that's just a consequence. The room fell silent. So I took out of the envelope the formal notice from lawyer Jacob. I put it in front of them. "You have 30 days, starting today, to answer formally." Amanda widened her eyes. "Dad, are you really going to do that? Against me? Against you?" I repeated, "No, I'm just putting everything back in place. Family does not abandon itself as luggage at the airport, and that's what you did to me." She began to cry. Short. The choked voice. "It was Nathan. It was his idea. I was tired." Nathan got angry. "Are you going to throw it all on my back now? He has always controlled you, Amanda, since I was little. It never had a life." "Be careful with the tone inside my house," I interrupted. Cold, straight, without losing his cool. Amanda stood up. She walked to the piece of furniture where the photo of her with her mother, still small, was in the garden. He picked up the frame. He looked at it for a while. The voice came out broken. "Mom would never let that happen." I got up too. "Your mother knew exactly who I was, and that's why he wrote to me last Christmas we spent together. You are the heart of this family. Now, Amanda, I just accepted that you don't need that heart anymore." She collapsed, but he did not approach. "And neither is it." Mark cleared his throat. "Chester, we don't need to turn this into a war. We can find a reasonable way out. You have already found the way out. On December 25th, when they left, without looking back, they understood. The visit was over. They stood up. They went to the door. Amanda was the last to leave. He looked back as if he expected me to run, hug, tell him that everything was fine, but I just looked at her with dignity. "You have abandoned. I just accepted it." I closed the door slowly. I leaned my forehead against the wood. I took a deep breath. But little did I know that their next attempt would not be emotional. It would be legal, and this time it would involve my granddaughter. In the days that followed that dry, uncomfortable and cowardly visit, the phone did not stop. But now, it wasn't Amanda. It wasn't Nathan. They were other names, other faces that I only used to see at Christmas or at weddings and funerals. People who had never been involved in anything and suddenly had too many opinions. The first was my niece, Laura. Her voice came with that tone of someone who arrived with ready judgment. "Uncle Chester." Amanda called me very shaken. "He said that you are different, that maybe you are going through something, that he's making decisions on impulse." I listened to everything in silence, and I just replied, "The only thing that has changed is that now I have stopped ignoring what they did to me." On the same day, the pastor of our old church called me. He said he had talked to Carol, Nathan's mother. "She's worried about her emotional state. He said that you are a recluse, talking about cutting relations, about filing lawsuits." I hung up the phone politely. But there I already understood the game. They were trying to discredit me, trying to turn history around, catching an elderly betrayed and paint as a confused, unstable, emotionally shaken man. But if there's one thing I've learned over the years is that truth without proof becomes a word in the wind. So I started recording. Every link, every conversation. I bought a small, discreet digital recorder, and whenever someone called me, I left it ringing on the side. Some voice messages have also been saved. I gathered everything, organized it by date, and sent it to Jacob, my lawyer. "They're panicking," he said. "They want to turn the villain into a victim and the victim into a villain. But you've got it all documented, Chester. They have nowhere to run." On Thursday, Margaret, my childhood cousin, called me. Her voice was distressed. "Chester, is something happening? Amanda said you freaked out. Who wants to take custody of Lily? Is that true?" There, my heart tightened. because they were starting to use my granddaughter's name. I explained everything to Margaret, from beginning to end. Take it easy. No anger. I told it like an old man who has nothing left to hide. I talked about the documents, the tickets, the messages on the iPad, the cancelled reservations, the signed contracts, the chat group. She was silent. Then he began to cry. "How could they do that to you?" I replied, "Because they thought I wouldn't react, that I was going to remain silent, as I always was. But this time, Margaret, no. And you know, it was there, with her crying on the other end of the line, that I realized how much this story went beyond personal pain. They weren't just running away from the consequences. They were trying to reconstruct the narrative, make me look like a bitter old man, a man with dementia. But I wasn't forgetting. On the contrary, I was remembering everything and registering, because this time, no one else will write this story for me. But I didn't know yet that Amanda was going to take the next step. And this time, she was going to involve Lily. Bluntly, that's it. It would move me like nothing before. The first notification came out on a rainy Tuesday. Jacob called me early in the morning and said, "Sent, officially. The execution process is underway." I just took a deep breath and thanked him. It was strange. No joy, no euphoria, just a kind of silence inside, as if something had finally lined up. 2 days later, Amanda received the summons at home, and for the first time in many years she didn't call me. He did not write. He did not ask for explanations. In the same envelope was the cancellation notice of the credit card she had used since college. The one I had requested myself in her name, but with guarantees from me. Another document, delivered the same day, annulled my co-signature on the financing of the car she and Nathan were driving. The bank called me asking for confirmation, and I just said, "Yes, you can remove. The responsibility is theirs now." In Nathan's case, the situation was even more delicate. He kept an educational financing, an MBA that he never finished, open, which was only active because of an endorsement made by me 4 years ago. I filed a request for immediate withdrawal of the guarantee. Result, the bank froze credit. In less than a week, what was once just a threat became a reality. The paperwork was moving, cold, clean, devastating. And you know. I found myself looking in the bathroom mirror one night after brushing my teeth. My eyes were tired, yes, my shoulders a little more hunched. But there was something there that I hadn't seen in a long time. Dignity. Because in the old days, my name was Shelter. Today, it's the wall they're going to hit head-on. Justice sometimes is not a cry, it's a whisper with letterhead. A few days later, Jacob told me that Amanda had been notified of the change in the will. She was no longer a beneficiary, neither she, nor Nathan, nor her in-laws. Everything was transferred to 2 institutions, the University of Colorado, where she studied, and the hospital where my wife spent the last days of her life. At that moment, I understood that inheritance is not about blood, it's about respect. Jacob asked me if I would like to leave any reversible clauses. I replied, "No, we don't put a lock on a door that has been broken into." The judge scheduled the collection hearing for the following month. It would be fast. Technique. Amanda would have to answer for the loan of the house. And he would only need to attend to confirm the data. I arrived at the court early. I sat alone on the wooden bench, with my documents in the new folder. When Amanda walked in, I saw that her eyes searched mine. But I didn't get up. He doesn't smile. I didn't even dodge. She walked to the other end of the room, next to the lawyer. Nathan didn't go. And there, before the judge, I just confirmed what was recorded. A gesture, a look, one sentence. There are things that we live and keep, but maybe by telling, we help another heart to breathe. Enjoy this video and subscribe, and let's make this story reach those who need it. Because the hardest thing was yet to come, because what Amanda did the day after the hearing, it was the lowest blow of all, and it involved Lily, my granddaughter, my last lasso. The day after the hearing, I opened my email as I always do in the morning. I like to read slowly, with my coffee, like someone who reads an old newspaper. And there it was, her name on the sender's line. Amanda. The subject? You won. I didn't click at the time. I closed my laptop, walked to the backyard, sat in the rocking chair Margaret gave me for my last birthday, and stood there, watching the pine trees sway in the wind. When I returned, I opened the email. It was short, hard. You got what you wanted. Now we are at rock bottom. Nathan lost his job. The bank took over the apartment. We're living in his brother's trailer in the middle of Nebraska. Lily sleeps with her grandparents. We don't even have room to breathe anymore. I hope you're satisfied. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Silence, sometimes, is the loudest answer that can be given. The days passed. Margaret called again. He said that he heard roughly from another cousin that Amanda had tried to get a job in a local market, but did not stay. The small town speaks, and shame runs faster than the wind. Nathan, it seems, was dismissed as soon as HR learned of the legal dispute with an elderly man, a former sponsor on top of that. His dirty record circulated in internal forums of the company. The in-laws? Once so full of opinion, now sharing a room with an 8-year-old child and a disillusioned daughter. I also learned that Carol, Nathan's mother, texted a friend in Boulder saying that the situation is untenable and that Amanda should have thought better before breaking up with her father. Life has a strange way of teaching. Sometimes the silence of abandonment is broken not by shouting, but by unpaid bills. Every overdue bill, every refused request, every embarrassment. It was a memory of those who, in fact, supported everything. I didn't wish them harm. I never wished. But I also wasn't going to carry the world on my back while they pretended it wasn't mine. No, there is a time when we stop trying to be remembered with love and start demanding to be remembered with respect. And if you've come this far with me in this story, I ask you, stay a little longer, because the most memorable moment, it's yet to come. Because when I thought I had seen it all, I received a call from Lily's school, and that's when everything changed. That's when the last piece fell, and my granddaughter gave me an answer that not even Amanda was able to imagine. It had been exactly 8 weeks since the hearing when I opened the door of my life to a new beginning. It wasn't with a party, nor with a speech. It was with silence, a light silence, one of those that do not weigh, that do not accuse, they just breathe. I started attending the book club for seniors there in Boulder. I had a group of 7, sometimes 8 people, and most of them were widowers like me. The first time I went, I sat half hidden in the corner, but soon Marlene started a conversation. She made short jokes and had the eyes of someone who had cried a lot, but learned to laugh again. Frank, also a widower, invited me for a walk in Chautauqua Park. He said it was good for the heart, the physical and the other. We went, and he kept going. No promises, no calendar, just presence. At home, I started a small renovation, Amanda's old room, the one I kept intact like a shrine frozen in time. It became a library. I took the pictures off the wall. I carefully packed the photos, the medals, the school tickets. I kept everything in a box labeled for when and if she wants to remember. In its place came shelves, many books, history, philosophy, poetry, and a new piano, one of those with a softer sound that seems to breathe with the room. It was my space now. My temple of silence and reconstruction. For the first time in a long time, I felt entire. Not because of what I gave, but for what I was. And it was then, in the middle of this new routine, coffee on the porch, book on my lap, slow steps in the park, that a message arrived. It wasn't Amanda's, it was Lily's, short, shy, almost a digital whisper. "Hi, Grandpa. The school asked me to write about someone we admire. I wrote about you." My heart stopped for a second, breathed. I read it again. She was only 8 years old, but every word felt like a rope pulling my chest forward. I wrote back only, "When you grow up, come back. I'll be old but lucid." Sent. And I closed the cell phone. because I understood there that maybe one day she will come back. But until then, I need to be whole, not waiting, just living. The justice that began on paper now lived in my chest, and the silence. It has become my highest form of dignity, because to forgive is not to forget. It's choosing not to charge anymore, but I still had one last thing to do, a decision that I saved for after all, something that I confess kept me up at night for days, and that no one, not Amanda, not Nathan, would ever imagine. Today it's snowing again, those fine snows which don't make a falling noise but cover everything in a short time. I'm here, sitting in my wooden chair, looking at the white yard, as if looking at an old painting. And I felt like talking to you, as if we were side by side, sharing the same silence. Because sometimes it is in silence that we hear what we never wanted to hear. I spent months trying to understand where everything went wrong. Where did I lose my daughter? And I came to a conclusion that still hurts to say out loud. I confused giving everything with being loved. I confused sustaining with being respected. I thought that each bill paid was a guaranteed hug, that each gift was a brick in the wall of gratitude, but it wasn't. Amanda didn't just betray me with that Christmas note. She betrayed me when she decided that my amount ended up at my credit card limit. That's it. That was a choice. My wife used to say that real love doesn't need a receipt. She wrote it to me on her Christmas cards, every time. You are the heart of this family, and true love does not need a receipt. I thought Amanda would understand this over time, but she understood something else. She grew up believing that love was comfort. That presence was a must, that everything I did was just part of the package. I don't blame her for that, not at all, because I also contributed. I was the one who never said no. I was the one who was always there, even when she turned her face. I was the one who silenced all sorrow with a new gift, but I also do not forgive what was not recognized. Not because I want revenge, but because I learned that forgiveness is only useful when there is repentance. And what came from her? It was just a nuisance. Shame. Today, sitting here with the smell of coffee rising from the mug, I understand. Respect is what is left when the money runs out. This is what remains when the aid stops. It is the silence after the storm. And the greatest revenge, it is absence. I stopped sending messages, to answer emails, to ask for her granddaughter. Not out of anger, but because loving cannot be insisting on being noticed. She will remember me one day, when she looks to the side and realizes that the lap she despised is no longer there. And when that day comes, maybe she understands. But I won't be waiting anymore. Now, excuse me, I'm going to finish this coffee and get the bread I ordered from the bakery around the corner. Life goes on. But before that, I need to tell you what I did with what's left, with the most valuable part of everything I built, with what none of them expected to lose, and that maybe they only understand when it is too late. And it was on that same day, the day of fine snow and hot coffee, that I made my last decision. I called Jacob and asked him to finish everything. The fund that was in Amanda's name, the same one I created when she was born, was transferred. Part of it was donated to the University of Colorado with a scholarship in my wife's name. Another part was sent to the hospital where she had the last treatment, and what was left, I turned it into a reading fund for children in vulnerable situations, because the love that can no longer be given to those who reject us can, and should, be redirected to those who need it. Today, Amanda and Nathan still live in Nebraska. I heard he tried to start over with a delivery service, and she gives private tutoring, trying to pay installments that don't stop coming. I don't wish harm, but I don't send help anymore either. The granddaughter, this one still lives in my heart. From time to time she sends a drawing, a word. I answer with affection, but without illusion. If she comes back one day, she will find a whole grandfather, not a man waiting for crumbs. I follow here, at my pace, I learned how to make bread, how to take care of plants, and even how to use this streaming. I watched old movies, reread letters from my wife, and turned nostalgia into routine. And if there's one thing this story taught me, it's just that we can be used, forgotten, underestimated. But as long as there is self-respect, no one takes away from us the value we carry. Life has shown me that being ground is beautiful, but we also have the right to lock the door and not open it to those who have passed over. Maybe you who have listened to me so far have also given too much. Maybe you loved so much that you forgot to love yourself. If that's the case for you, keep it to yourself. You don't have to scream. No need to beg. You don't need to take revenge. You just need to stop paying the bill for those who don't value you. I went down. I was a shelter. But now, I am the owner of the key. And you, who accompanied me here, who listened with an open heart, thank you very much. It was nice to have your company. It's good to know that there are people who still listen with soul. If this video touched you in any way, leave a like. For me, it's like a hug. And if you want to come back for another coffee, subscribe to the channel. The door is always open. Tell me in the comments which city you're watching. It will be beautiful to see where so many people with so much history come from. And it activates the bell, so you don't lose it when the coffee is ironed again. Don't go away yet. Listen to the next true story that will appear on the screen. Always remember, each wrinkle tells a story, and each story carries a strength. Watch the next video here on the channel with another incredible story.